You have to know with this panel, and about games in general, is that quitting is not an option. Quitting is intrinsic. Quitting, you cannot design a game and make it unquittable. Games, by default, no matter what the game designer did, players can quit them. Because if they can't quit them, that is not a game, that is Saw. People argue about definitions of game, but one of the important pieces of that is that a game is consensual among all the players involved. You are not playing a game if you did not consent to be in the game. So, why do people quit games? Before we talk about rage quitting and all the fun stuff and the table flipping, and we got some table flipping, we need to look and think about really, like, what are the reasons why people quit games? How many of you have quit a game?
Yeah.
How many of you rage quit a game?
No.
I've rage quit games.
I don't.
How many of you have rage quit a game in a destructive manner? Say a table, whoa.
These bad people here.
Is anyone here because they want to know how to do that better?
I don't know, MAGFest has like a code of conduct. I don't know if that follows that or not. I haven't read it carefully enough.
So there's actually a very small number of reasons why people quit games. And the simplest one, the most obvious one, is boredom. People quit games because whatever it is that game is not doing anything for them. They are bored.
Yeah, I mean, you play a game, it's because you're looking for some enjoyment, some escape from the world. There's something you're looking for when you consent to playing a game that you're not getting in real life. And if you consent to playing the game, you enter this game world, and you're not finding there what you thought you would find there. Why am I doing this? I don't want to do this anymore. Bye. I'll go back to the real world again.
Now this gets into interesting situations because why is a game boring is a whole separate panel that we do not have time to get into.
Because it sucks, that's why.
But I guess in the tabletop community at least, the term that people have been using more and more is the idea of a fun economy. And you rate how much fun a player is having, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how fun was that game? But then you amortize that over how long it took to play the game. A game that is only okay fun, but only takes 30 seconds, probably has a better fun economy than a game that's like a 7 fun, but took 4 freaking hours. Looking at you, almost every co-op game.
Yep.
The game took longer than the players expected.
All right, so that's similar to what Rim was just talking about with the fun economy. But I mean, even if you're having a ton of fun with a game, like, oh my God, this game is incredible. Holy crap, I'm way into this. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute, it's 7 and this other panel is starting and I only thought this game was gonna take 2 hours, but now I'm late for something else. I gotta go.
It took too long.
That's
now your
more
friends
important.
are gone.
You know, it's like, this time, no matter what you're doing in this game world, the real world's clock continues on. That's why I like the trend now. A lot of video games are showing you the real world clock in the corner somewhere. Hearthstone does this, Civilization does this.
The fact that Civ does that has probably saved me from death.
Yeah, right? It's like, you know, so it's like if you're playing a game, no matter how much fun you're having, if it goes too long, sometimes you just gotta quit.
But the reason this often comes up and leads to a player quitting isn't just this basic problem. Usually, it's because the other people who wanted you to play the game have set an unreasonable expectation for how long the game will take. And this varies depending on the kind of gamer you are. So if I say some really complicated German board game, I assume that's going to take 40 minutes because my friends take their freaking turns. If you play with certain people, that 40 minutes becomes 4 hours, and that's a problem. Sometimes, the game is not what you expected. You thought this game, people seem to like this slide, that is the literal truth of that game. Like if you go into the game of Monopoly thinking this is going to be an intense game of economics, you're going to be, shall we say, sorely disappointed when you actually start playing Monopoly.
Yeah. This happens a lot because, you know, games these days tend to there's not a lot of abstract games these days, meaning like a game that's just like symbols, like say chess is not completely abstract because it has sort of like, you know, has some sort of royal theme to it. But
Go is somewhat more abstract.
Go is much more abstract. It's black and white discs, right? There's not a lot of theme going on, whereas like most games these have themes, right? It's space or fantasy usually, but could be anything, right? You know, and a lot of people decide what games to play based on those themes, right? You know, you look at a Final Fantasy game, you see a bunch of Moogles, you're like, that's for me. And it's, you know, you play Final Fantasy Tactics, which is a great game, but maybe you were expecting just regular old JRPG and you're like, oops.
And actually a pretty good example of this recently is the game Cuphead, because Cuphead is beautiful, but it is not the kind of game a lot of people who like that aesthetic would actually want to play.
Yeah, you look at those cups and you're like, man, that looks like, Steamboat Willie, only in color. I totally want to play this game. And you're like, oh, it's like this incredibly hard
You know Steamboat
thing.
Willie, like it feels more like Fleischer Brothers.
I mean, whatever. What do I know?
The forfeit. So this is a situation that happens kind of often. It's important to bring up in terms of why people quit. Some people quit a game before it begins. A game is scheduled and someone chooses not to participate. And it gets interesting because usually this is done as some sort of form of protest of the game.
Yeah.
The example we have here is a fascinating situation where a school, due to, let's say, skirting the rules of how schools may be allowed to recruit students, assembled a team of monsters to play high school football.
So the other teams, which are just honest, they just happen to be high schools. They're not trying to assemble football teams.
They don't have 300-pound
right.
ninth
They
graders.
just pick the best kids who happen to be at the school to play football, and they realize, well, if we field our team against the Monstars, we are going to literally murder these children. Let us not play. Right? That would be a better option, right?
So this is like the situation where Scott agrees to play Advance Wars with me, and then he finds out that I'm actually a pro at Advance Wars, and there's literally no point. He doesn't want to waste his time. He will pre-quit. He will forfeit the game and take the loss. We'll get back to what taking the loss means to avoid playing.
Right. One of the other reasons you might forfeit besides protesting is you're unable to play, right? Like a lot of time we played, once I was working at a small company maybe 10 years ago, and we wanted to play softball, so we joined the softball league, and a lot of weeks we couldn't muster the number of players required to put a team on the field, so we just had to forfeit all these games, and then they kicked us out of the league. Because we're up against companies that had thousands of employees, and they always were able to send enough people to the game to play, and we were not.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I guess the important point there is that when someone forfeits, sometimes it's a situation like that, but sometimes it's very specifically a performative act. The pre-quit is done to make a point to the other players or to the spectators. And we'll get back to that because that feeds a little bit into the idea of rage quit.
Yeah, we were trying to make a point. It's not fair we're in the same league with these giant companies.
Yeah. Sometimes people quit because they are losing. Some people play games. People can play games for a lot of different reasons. Some people play games because they feel good when they win. They are not having a good time when they are not winning, and if they are losing a game, they do not want to play it anymore. We have all experienced this. I mean, if you play Overwatch Quick Play, you've experienced this about every 4 minutes. But much more interesting is when they have already effectively lost.
We were at this game.
Yes, we went to the Rochester Institute of Technology, and RIT was a school. I don't know how many of you care about sports?
Okay.
Okay, how many of you care about ice hockey?
Yeah, all right. So we were in college. We went to this school called RIT, which did not have a football team. It used to have a football team. The last coach of that football team before it was disbanded was Tom Coughlin, right? Right? Okay, so the RIT, because it's in Rochester where it's freaking cold, had an ice hockey team that was legit. Now,
It was a Division II team. And
right.
you might be thinking, wait, there's no Division II.
Right. There used to be NCAA Division II. They got rid of it, and there's only 1 and 3, which is why not make it 1 and 2? Don't ask me. So there's NCAA Divisions 1 and 3. RIT, obviously not a sports school, right? So the RIT hockey team was in Division 3, and so were all the other teams at RIT.
But they were forced to be in Division 3 because they weren't allowed to have one team be in Division 1. But they didn't have a football team. You weren't allowed to be in Division 1 if you didn't play every major sport.
Right. When you're a Division 1 school, all your teams are Division 1, right? It would be unfair because then what would happen? All the big time football schools would be like, well, Division 1 football team, Division 3, all these other teams, right? It's like, no. You have to Division 1 the whole deal, right? And RIT wasn't capable of Division 1ing everything. Anyway, their hockey team was way better than Division 3, but not quite good enough for Division 1. But they're in Division 3, so they kicked everyone's ass quite often, and we went there and went to all the games.
They
awesome.
scored 24 goals in a game of hockey.
It's an ice hockey game.
They said at one point they scored twice while they were announcing a goal.
They changed the goalie twice, right?
Yeah, and to their credit, they did not quit.
No, they had to play the whole game.
But a lot of people, if you're playing a game and you feel like there's no way you're coming back, you probably want to quit. You probably don't want to keep playing. A lot of games try to hide the fact that you're losing.
Right. There's a lot of games out there. I always think tennis is the perfect game because as long as you're still playing tennis, even if you're down a whole bunch, you still have a chance to win.
Yeah.
Right? It's like until it's match point, you can still win. You can turn it around and keep scoring and keep winning games and sets and come all the way back, right? It's not over till it's over. There's a lot of games out there where even though it's not officially over, oh, it's over, right? Oh, it's like there's no way you can possibly win. You might as well quit now.
That is the situation that almost always implies bad game design. Ideally, games end when they are mathematically concluded. But as you've seen in sports, sometimes the season keeps going, but there's 2 or 3 teams who are mathematically eliminated from the playoffs.
That's a good, yeah.
They have no reason to show up. But they're paid at least. If I'm not being paid to play a game with you, and I mathematically cannot win the game, what incentive do I have to do anything but walk away?
Well, you could just spoil the game for them.
We'll get back. We'll get to that. So, whenever you see this in a game, it usually implies there's some bad game design, and we have other lectures we've given around YouTube where we can get into that in detail. Some games, especially poorly designed games or poorly designed metas, actually give players an incentive to quit. These are the games where if you quit a game, or you pulled your network cable out, or the game crashed, it didn't count the loss against you, and you'd see a lot of 13-year-olds with perfect records.
I had a perfect record at Mario Kart DS.
Yeah.
No one ever beat me at that online.
So even if the game itself is not fun to these people, they have some other incentive to quit the game. They're rewarded in the real world in some tangible way for quitting the game as opposed to playing it to its conclusion. This is terrible design, and you see it kind of often. So a lot of people quit games because they suspect, now I suspect in this case as well, that the game is unfair, that someone is cheating. Now, I suspect that the suspect, that's all headshots.
It could be that the suspect is pro at Counter-Strike and Daisy, Robin, Pelican, Nautilus, and Mask are all nubs, or more likely, the suspect is the cheater.
But you don't want to play a game. If you're playing poker and you see someone literally cheating, you don't want to keep playing with them. In the Wild West, you'd shoot them. And especially because if you're playing a game for fun, almost every utility you could get out of a game is ruined if you believe that one of the other players is not following the rules that you are following.
Right. It's not just cheating. It's like any time a game feels really or beyond the blinds of unfair, right? Maybe you're playing a player versus player game where there's some pay to win action and you get matched up against someone who's paid to win and you haven't, and they're just like loaded with awesome shit and you're sitting there with like your nub cannon like pew pew pew. It's like
World of Tanks had that problem.
Right. It's like you might as well just quit. Why are you playing this, right? Same thing.
But it's very important to note that even if the suspect is cheating, it does not matter. The effect is the same if that player is just that good. It does not matter if the game is actually unfair. It only matters that the player feels like it is unfair. Mm-hmm. We're doing a panel on balance in game design where we're going to talk at length about this topic. Mm. So this is a really interesting thing that happened in Overwatch, which I play a lot, and I still main Reinhardt.
I have played never.
I don't know why you haven't played it. It is like up your alley.
I'm old.
Multiple avenues.
I can't play FPS anymore. I'm old.
Yeah, you're old. I'm gold, despite being in my 30s.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, there was, in Overwatch...
Only gold?
There was this player who was basically the best sniper in Overwatch in the world. This player was preternaturally good at sniping. They were never accused of cheating. That was never a problem. This isn't that kind of story. But what that player complained about was that increasingly they were never match made. They would wait forever and never get put in games. So it turned out that what was happening, and Blizzard actually had to investigate this to figure it out, there was an anti-harassment feature in Overwatch where you could right-click on a player's name and say, avoid this player. The intention was to avoid those toxic shitheads who were playing games all the time. But what happened was people were right-clicking on everyone who was better than them. So as a result, this player was quit on by literally everyone else in Overwatch.
The same thing happens like with just your local friends, right? Maybe you're playing some Street Fighter and you get better at Street Fighter than your friends. You're not like super good that you're gonna go win Evo or anything, right? But you're better than all your friends, so they can't even jab you once. You beat them with jab only maybe, or so better,
Scott beats me with jab only.
Right, I suck ass at fighting games. If we go downstairs, I will not beat anyone in this room except for him, who sucks even worse, right? And I can beat him with jab only, but there's someone else downstairs.
Unless we're playing Bushido Blade 2 or Soul Calibur 2, and I'm Voldo.
Anyway, yeah, you're Voldo. Anyway. Right?
No one chooses Voldo. Voldo chooses you.
The point is, you're just better enough than the other people that it's not fun for them to play against you anymore because you just win every single time because you've somehow skilled up to the next level.
But you can see how complex the idea of quitting gets when this situation can occur in a game. So, in terms of unfairness, a lot of times the thing that people
did I tell you I'm undefeated this game?
I am also. I was not undefeated at this game because I dropped my DS a couple times. We'll get to that. This was Mario Kart on the DS. It was one of the best Mario Karts, except there was something called snaking. And basically what you could do is if you boosted constantly on straightaways.
Right. We all know that the way Mario Kart was designed is you're supposed to drift around the corners, and that's when you get your blue sparks and your red sparks. But in this game, you just had to drift to get sparks. Didn't matter if you're on a corner or on a straightaway or whatever. So if you had enough room, you could just go sparks, 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 sparks on a straightaway. Right? Just constant sparking and basically achieve ludicrous speed even though...
You would lap other players multiple times if they did not also do this. And the way I will demonstrate the technique.
Right. A lot of people would keep their thumbs straight and shake the DS up and down to hit the buttons
I
left and right.
I waggled it like that. I actually got blisters.
Right. But if you did this, basically you would go so fast that no one would be able to catch up to you unless they also did this. And no one wants to do this because it hurts.
Now, to make matters worse, because this was a Nintendo game, you couldn't communicate with anyone. You were playing with random people on the internet. You got like a flag of what country they were from, and that was it. So as a result, because you couldn't communicate, no one could be like, all right, guys, let's not snake, like have a social contract. The game itself was the only thing to enforce the rules. So of course, I snaked 100% of the time because it literally was the best way to win, and I wanted to win. But even worse, people would start like literally naming the games no snaking. And of course, I would join those games.
And snake.
And immediately snake. And then those players would quit, and then I'd get the win in like 30 seconds.
They wouldn't get any losses though, everyone was undefeated.
Yeah, they didn't get a loss because the game didn't track the loss. I didn't get a win, so I was incentivized to do this cheap strategy. They were incentivized to quit, and it worked for everyone.
Be thankful for your current Mario Kart online situation.
There's a reason the sparks work the way they do in the new Mario Karts.
Yeah.
Speaking of that technique, sometimes you quit a game because you can't play the game anymore. Games hurt. Games can hurt you. Video games can hurt you. Esports are going to have the same problems that regular sports do. My only advice here,
hopefully not CTE, but maybe CTS.
If you're hurting yourself playing a game, quit that game. Unless you're being paid millions of dollars, you should not risk your health and safety playing a video game. But if you're getting paid millions of dollars,
it might be worth it because you can just, have a very short career, hurt yourself a little bit, and then live on that money for the rest of your life.
Yeah, but most
Good
people,
deal.
I mean, think about like American football, which has all these problems. Most people who play football do not get paid millions of dollars.
No, only a few.
So this also happens in tabletop. And it was at a MAGFest long ago where a friend of ours broke his finger.
Maybe the first MAGFest we ever went to in a different building than this one?
A friend of ours broke his finger playing a board game. Jungle Speed is a game where you just flip cards over and it's cool until something matches, and then two people have to grab that heavy-ass wooden totem, and whoever gets the totem wins the hand. And yeah, that didn't go well. So when you think about injury, a lot of people think about sports injuries in terms of hockey, football, all those things. This is something that has to be addressed in gaming as well.
I mean, this is a sport, though.
Well, what's the difference between a sport and a game?
Anyway,
we've done a lecture on that.
We're here to talk about quitting. Okay.
That is an example we'll get to some other time. This is a big part of why people quit games, because even if you're playing enjoying the game, if you're being harassed, that is an incentive to quit. And no one should have to put up with harassment, but at the same time, if someone quits a game, it hurts the experience for everyone else. You can see this toxic cycle of toxic shitheads not only hurts everyone involved, but it also leads to this quitting problem.
Right, quitting can also be a kind of harassment sometimes, right? It's like, oh, I played this game with you. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna, basically quit this game to ruin it for all you. Yeah, because I'm a jerk.
Yeah. So we'll talk about this more toward the end, but harassment is a legitimate reason to quit games, and is also probably one of the biggest problems facing video games today. Some games will provide an intrinsic quitting point. The game will give you some signal it is time for everyone to quit. This mostly applies to single-player games or multiplayer games where you can determine a winner and then sort of walk away even if you didn't finish it. But mechanically, if the game gives you a point where everyone who's bored can say, yeah, let's just stop playing, that's pretty good game design.
Yeah, I've seen some video games lately that are like, hey, you've been playing for a while. Are you sure you don't want to take a break, maybe?
Yeah, but it gives everyone an excuse, because you've all been in this situation. I guarantee you have. You're playing a tabletop game. Literally everyone playing it wants it to end. No one will admit this. No one will quit. Games that give everyone the cover to quit the game gracefully are well-designed games. Extrinsic stopping points, like we talked about, sometimes you quit because literally you have to go to work to continue to feed yourself to keep playing that game.
Right, hopefully your game has a way to save, right? So you can come back to it. But I find I never come back to it. Whenever I come back to Civ, I always pick new game. I never load a game.
No, I load the game. I can't remember what the hell I was doing, and then I quit the game and started
The beginning of the game is way more fun anyway.
So, of course, you're all here, obviously the title of the panel. You're here for this stuff. That is the industry term for this situation. We're going to talk about this now. We're going to talk about the rage quit specifically, because butthurt rage is a thing that occurs in gaming. I find it hilarious. It's not always hilarious. This can be serious.
My favorite is the video of the guy playing Magic and the guy does the guy.
So there's different types of rage quits. And this is where, not just as a player, but as a designer, if any of you want to design games someday, you have to think about the situations that lead to this. The pure rage quit is defined by you feel bad, you want to stop feeling bad, so you quit. You suddenly quit to stop the bad feeling from happening. Deny the other player the win. It is a personal, internal thing, and this is sort of like the simplest form. You just turn the game off, throw the controller, walk away. You disappear from the game. And it's pretty simple, but the idea is that this is done for your own sake more so than for doing something to another person.
Right, maybe not even multiplayer. You're playing some single player game, there's some really hard part, and you do it 100 times and you still can't get past it, and you're just so pissed, and it's just like, screw this shit.
Our friend Luke shocked himself with his Game Boy Advance.
I think he pretended to shock himself, but he did bite his Game Boy Advance.
He threw it across the room one time, and then the screen broke, and he screamed. So he
also
Advance
failed
Wars.
out of graduate school because he played Advance Wars too much.
Yeah, but Advance Wars, the first Advance Wars that came out in the US, the game was if you wanted to get S ranks and max everything out, you had to play these crazy perfect combos, and you play 3 rounds, reset, play 3 rounds, reset, and every time he had to reset, he'd bite his GBA because he was so mad, and one time he shocked himself on that charger port. But that is distinct from the destructive rage
this
quit.
video, this is my favorite.
The difference is very simple. Destructive rage quits are not for your own sake. They are performative. You are doing this to actively harm the other players. You want other people to be hurt by your actions. You want to prevent the game from continuing. If this is second-degree murder, this is first-degree murder.
Right, and it's not just harming your opponent it's like you gave me these, right? It's in a multiplayer game, right? If you think about the situation I just talked about in the single player game where you're so frustrated with this hard part, right? In a multiplayer game, the game itself isn't causing there to be a hard part. Your opponent is actually playing in a way that is oppressive against you. And it's like, stop oppressing me. Because you suck or because you're losing, you can't fight back against them within the context of the game, so you fight back against them in the context outside the game. It's like, well, you have this really awesome deck of Magic cards, so the crazy combo that I can't beat with my crappy deck of Magic cards, I'm gonna just punch you in the face. And now I can beat you.
Now, what's interesting is that tabletop games can actually suffer from this more, because unlike a video game that can have good programming and good techniques to deal with this, there is no way to stop that from happening. I guess you could have burly bouncers standing around every table, just cool it, just calm down, son.
The performative aspect is also to send a message to other people if they're around, right? It's like when you flip the table on someone, you're sort of letting everyone know this guy is no good, my opponent is bad, but also you're letting everyone know I'm a person with anger issues, don't play with me.
My favorite part about this picture is that he's a little blurry because of what he's in the act of doing it. This, if we're talking about first-degree murder, second-degree murder, this is the hitman. Some people rage quit, but they don't actually stop playing the game. When they rage quit, they stick around, but they stop playing the game for the utility the game was designed for. They're playing Overwatch. They are no longer trying to move the payload. They're trying to delay as many people as possible with the Maywall on their own team.
Yeah, I don't feel like planting the bomb. I'm just gonna team kill in the spawn.
Yep. Now what's interesting is that both of these first two actions, one is like sort of a self-help mechanism, and one of them is a harm others mechanism, but they're both sort of crimes of passion. They're things where someone suddenly snaps, and they lash out all at once, and then they leave. This is someone who's so mad that they actually start devoting their time, energy, and resources to hurting other people, to ruining other people's joy. And obviously this is a big problem because every game on Earth has all these different systems to deal with these people, and no one's really gotten a good solution all the way down yet. So here's another side story.
Everything Overwatch with you. You don't have another game for an example?
Overwatch is the only game I play right now.
Okay.
Unless if someone brings back Tribes 2. Not another Tribes game, but Tribes 2 itself has to be brought back. Then I'll play that game. So there's this person. Let's call him Hanjo. And there's a whole article you can read about this. His goal was to be the bottom-ranked player in competitive Overwatch. He wanted to be the bottom, the worst player. And it turns out this was really hard to accomplish. Because when you get to the bottom, there are people who don't know D.Va can fly. There are Reinhardts who never bring their shield up.
There are people who don't know how to control a character in an FPS and don't know how to shoot or anything.
There are 4-year-olds who like stumbled upon dad's computer and are just hitting buttons. You're playing against literal cats.
It's like jump and try to get hit by their bullets, if they shoot any.
So this article by this person is amazing, but he talked about the kinds of people he met like as he made his way down in the ranks. And in the mid-30s, now this is a little bit of an old panel, so this is back in the original seasons when the rankings went from 1 to 100. In the mid-30s, like the left, like if you break the thing into 5 quartiles, the 2/5 area, the people who are one step above the worst people, those are the angriest people. He described them as the angriest people in the world. The people who are worse than them didn't care that much, or were so bad they didn't even really understand what was happening. The people better than that were slowly progressing and understanding the game. These people were playing the game a lot, and they were not getting better. And if you break down all the factors that cause this specific kind of gamer, because this archetype exists in that 2/5 area of almost every competitive game on Earth.
Right.
Like that is the danger zone.
Right, so this is someone who knows how the game works. They know the rules of the game, they understand the game, right? And they know how to play, so they feel as if I know what I'm doing, and they, when there's like situations, like they'll give you an answer like, oh, what should you do when this happens? You should do this. They'll tell you something. They're mostly wrong, but they think they're right.
Oh yeah, you gotta play Farrah as a flanker. She's really good at that.
Right, so they feel as if I'm doing the right thing, yet they lose, but they don't try to improve. They don't have a coach to tell them that what they're doing is wrong.
They try to improve. That's the thing. A lot of gamers, they conflate time with effort. Not just gamers. This happens in life. This happens in sports and exercise. But there are people who, they put a lot of time into something, and they assume that they will naturally get better at that thing just because they put the time in. As we know, that is not true. There's no Santa Claus either. But a lot of games will... A lot of games will give a false sense of progress. They'll give you loot boxes. They'll level you up. All these meters go up, but the meter in your soul isn't going up. And they don't show you that one, because if they do, there's a reason why Overwatch Competitive shows a whole totally different number. Because if you showed the people playing Quick Play what their real number is, they would never play Overwatch again. They also lack poor positional heuristics. This is a concept, if you care more, there's a book by Richard Garfield, the guy who designed Magic the Gathering, called Characteristics of Games. 90% of the content in our panels we're citing something in that book. But there's the idea of heuristics. Humans cannot do all the math to do anything in the real world in real time. So we develop simple rules to follow. Like, if something's too bright, I close my eyes and look away. We have all these rules we follow to do stuff. Positional heuristics are how we determine how well we're doing something. How good am I at this game? What's my score in this game? These people think that they're very good at the game, because the heuristics are bad. They think the other players who are actually good at the game are worse than them because they don't understand what those players are actually doing. And all this leads to them being both astonishingly bad at the game and astonishingly serious about the game.
Right. So we all know about like the Dunning-Kruger effect, where people who know less think they're better at something because they don't know enough to know that they're bad. But when you play a game and you have this situation, the game tells you that you're bad when you lose, because it's like you have this overinflation of your own skills, and then the game gives you a big L to tell you, like, as evidence is mounting that it's not true, and that's where this anger comes from, the conflict between your belief about your own skills and this person saying, nope, you suck, nope, you suck.
There's only two ways to go with this. Either you have to admit that you suck at Overwatch, or you have to assume that everyone else sucks at Overwatch and the man is keeping you down.
And most people go to step 2.
So let's get to the game design side of this, because in terms of a player quitting, there are only two questions that really need to be answered. Can the game continue? Can a winner be determined? Of course, we're talking about competitive games. This isn't D&D.
Right. If it's not a competitive game, then like, what does it matter if someone quits, right? If someone quits your D&D campaign, be like, oh, well, they died or something, and you continue, right? Or like, if it's a single-player game and you quit, the computer isn't crying when you quit the single-player game. It doesn't matter, right? And if it's not a competitive game, even if it's multiplayer, it's like what? Only in a competitive multiplayer game where you're determining winning is like quitting suddenly matters and you need to do something about it.
So let's try to answer these two questions from some situations. So this is one of my favorite things that ever happened in a baseball game. So
are there
on June 4th,
people from Ohio here? Yeah, I guess that's why they're raising their hands.
So they know about Cedar Point.
Yeah.
If you've ever been to a roller coaster park and you haven't been to Cedar Point, you don't know shit about roller coasters. So on June 4th, 1974, there was a baseball game in Ohio. Independent of that, the promotion of this baseball game was you could buy a cup of beer for 10 cents.
Now, it was 1974. 10 cents then is a lot more than 10 cents now.
But it's still not that much.
No, 10 cents is still real cheap in 1974. Everybody got a dime, right?
So, can you imagine, just think, like, close your eyes and think in your head, what is something that could happen?
Imagine if there was an NFL game today in Cleveland, and it was dollar beer game, right? Just like, imagine what it would look like.
Like what could happen that could prevent the game of baseball from no.
That's an actual photo of actual 10-cent beer night from actual 1974 Cleveland, Ohio.
I would tell you the story of this. Just read the Wikipedia article because it is a delight from start to finish. So, what do you do in this situation? Can the game continue?
Yeah, this didn't happen at the end of the game, like in '69 when the Mets fans ran on the field after they won the World Series. Right?
Yep.
This is before the game ended, well before the game ended.
Can the game continue? No, the cops could not stop this.
At least not the 1974 cops.
Can a winner be determined? Yes. The baseball league had a rule, and the rule was if the game cannot be played, it's the home team's fault.
Yeah, you didn't control your own fans, right? It's your fault for not keeping these people off the field. Your security was, insufficient, so you lose. Eat it.
That's hilarious.
How about Overwatch quick play, the casual quick play? Someone quits the game. Can the game continue? Yeah, just take some rando and throw them into the losing team. The game will keep going.
It doesn't matter that it's not, exactly the same team. It's quick play. Who gives a crap?
Can a winner be determined? Yes, a winner is still determined. So the answer is yes to both of those. We actually have pretty good solutions there. What about competitive? Can the game continue? People have argued yes, but the answer is no, because the game is no longer fair in a meaningful way for a competitive game. You're not going to continue a hockey game if there isn't a goalie on the other team.
That's why they have like 3 layers of backup goalies. It's awesome. There's always these great stories like, 2 goalies got injured and like the vending machine like repairman almost got to be the goalie, but they got someone from the minor leagues just in case.
Because obviously a game that is generating millions of dollars, the people who designed the game have a vested interest in allowing the game to continue if someone quits because they took a puck to the neck. So competitive esports, same thing. Can the game continue? No. Overwatch just says, well, this game is hosed. Can a winner be determined? Yes. Your team had the quitter, you lose, that sucks. Just like baseball. Now, what's interesting is that Jeff Kaplan, who is basically the director of Overwatch, this is a quote, and I agree with Jeff Kaplan on almost everything he's ever said about game design. The more I interact with this person, he's a wonderful human being. They are very clear.
In the news tomorrow, Jeff Kaplan. No, I don't want to slander someone I don't know. He could be awesome.
I don't think he's a milkshake.
But I'm just saying it would be ironic if that were to happen tomorrow.
Yeah. But it's not just that they don't want people to quit competitive games of Overwatch. They do not want people who quit games of Overwatch to play the game at all. In any mode, full stop, F you. You are hurting the game for everyone else. There is no justifiable reason to even let you play the game. What about a tabletop game like Carcassonne? If someone quits, can the game continue?
Kinda.
Yeah. Well, so this is where game gets interesting. The game could continue, but technically you're breaking the rules because one player's not taking their turn. You could get someone else to take over for that player, and the game could still continue because while it's a different player, the state of the game of Carcassonne is pretty simple. If you sit down at a random game of Carcassonne, you can figure out in about 2 minutes what strategy you should use to continue the game.
I guess if the replacement player wins, they get partial credit for the victory shared with the other person. That's how you determine the winner.
Can a winner be determined? Yes, technically a winner can still be determined. What about a complicated board game? Can the game continue? Probably not. The game is probably so complicated that you have no way to resolve the rules problem. What do you do with this Eclipse civilization that just doesn't have a player anymore? And even if you find a player to play, if the board state contains too much information for a person to parse in a reasonable span of time, they will not be able to effectively pick up for the player who quit.
You might be able to find someone who's so expert that they could pick up the game, but good luck. I mean, I can't even pick up a game at the beginning.
What about Android Netrunner, a 2-player game? If someone quits, can the game continue? No, he owns his deck.
He takes his cards and go home. He's not gonna leave his cards at the game store and have someone else play with them, right? But can a winner be determined? Yeah, the person who's still at the game store wins.
This does lead to a problem. I like to think of it as the Monopoly problem again. Say you're losing the game of Monopoly. You could just walk away from the table. But if you just sit there and the game keeps going until everyone else is so bored they quit, you win.
It's a good strategy.
So there's actually a third question we need to be able to ask. It's not just can a winner be determined, but does the win count? And that is where quitting gets really interesting because count means different things for different people. In a casual game of Carcassonne, does it count? Who cares?
Right, I mean,
there's no money on the line.
There's a lot of games where it's it counts, and we play it like it counts, and then when I win, I go, yeah, I won, and I tweet, and I say, MAGFest score, Scott won, yeah, awesome, and then we forget about that for the rest of our lives, and it doesn't, what did it count for? It counted for 5 minutes of bragging, right?
I won that game of Dune last weekend, though, and I'm going to brag about that for a while.
Sure.
That was a good
game.
game.
And you'll forget it in the next year.
I'll never forget that victory.
I'll never forget your time with the dragon.
The dragon does. Good, no one laughed at that.
Good.
They don't know.
Good.
Don't Google that.
Do not look for that.
But say you're playing for money, whether or not it counts matters a lot to everyone involved.
Oh, yeah.
Say you're super serious people who take games super seriously. Like, you mess up a rule in the middle of a really complicated German board game. Among our group of friends, that doesn't count anymore. We might just quit and start over. We get mad.
Maybe you're playing for serious prizes like a trophy or something.
So I want to give you the secret. This is a secret you can use to avoid that situation if you mess up a rule or something weird happens in a game. It's the asterisk. You know the asterisk next to certain names in the Hall of Fame? If you mess up a rule in the middle of the game, you all just stop and say, all right, here's how we'll resolve it, and we'll put an asterisk next to this victory.
Yeah, it's oh, you won with an asterisk.
Yep, you kind of won, but we didn't play it right. This is
we'll play it again later without the asterisk.
This is the smoothest way to get out of that situation where someone's really butthurt because you told them the rule 20 times and they still didn't believe you, and then they looked it up and now they're mad about it.
The best part about the asterisk is that the winner still feels like a winner, even though they got this little asterisk. It doesn't hurt their feelings too much. It's they still won, right? Everyone's still admitting they won. They're not too upset. And all the losers are yeah, I lost, but that game was messed up, right? I got some ego shield here.
Yep.
Right?
That's a term that's been thrown around the industry a lot these days. It's good for games to include some sort of ego shield, so the winner still feels like they won, but the loser always has some sort of excuse they can internalize.
Luck is the #1 ego shield in the world, right? It's this game, I lost that game of Hearthstone because random thing. Okay, RNG.
That's why a lot of those...
I didn't lose. I'm not worse. My feelings aren't hurt. I got beat by RNG.
A lot of those complicated German board games, the reason people get so mad toward the end of them is that if you lose in a game that has no luck, you lost specifically because of the sum of the decisions that you as a human being made, and there is literally no excuse for that.
Were worse decisions than the other player made, and they beat you.
Now,
good job.
Whether or not a win counts only matters if you're crazy like we are. There's a much better question to ask. Was the game satisfying? Was the experience satisfying to you? If everyone at the table is satisfied with how it was resolved, great.
All right, you're done with the game. Do you regret playing? Do you wish you could go back in time and live a different life where you don't play that game?
I have a few games where I wish that.
Do you wish you can go back in time and live a life where you did not come into this panel and instead went to the arcade at MAGFest?
So here's an interesting case study from a while ago. This was kind of amazing. So
people still play this game, apparently.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't know that, but apparently they do.
Well, I mean, if Tribes 2 still existed, that's all I'd play.
Sure.
Action Quake 2, maybe.
Anyway.
So Left 4 Dead, it's a team game. You're playing online. You have a team of 4. There's another team of 4. It's asymmetric. Someone's the zombies. Someone's the people. Sure, it's cool. Usually play it with strangers, but the game had a reputation for tons and tons of rage quitting and butthurt table flipping. So here's what was happening. I join a random game. Let's just say like everyone's playing randomly. No one's on a team with anyone else.
You're all solo. 8 solo players.
Say my team of 4, we win a game. All right. We're more likely to stick together because it's more fun to be winning this game than losing this game.
Yeah, they let you keep your team. So you win a game, and then you keep your same team of 4, and you play again, and you win a game, and you're keeping this team of 4 people together who got a thing going on. You know, you're working it. You're gonna win games.
Yeah.
Right? The people you're playing against are gonna be the same people you just played against, and they can't beat you. So why do they want to play against you again just to lose again? So some of them, at least, or all of them, quit.
There's a slightly higher percentage chance, it's pretty much across the board, that the losing team will have at least one person who quits. Keep playing games, keep playing games. Eventually, if you're a random person, and you jump into the queue to get put into a game...
Hey, click play now.
It finds a game that's already in progress. Guess what? A game that's already in progress that has someone who quit, that is a losing team. You're gonna join a team that's already losing.
If you click play now, the odds are, most of the time, you're going to be put onto a team that is losing, because those are the teams that have empty spots. The teams where they're winning don't have empty spots unless someone like just has to go to the bathroom or is done playing for the night or something.
And meanwhile, the teams you were playing against are these teams of 4 people who are good.
Right, they stuck together.
The same thing happens in Overwatch, except Overwatch has a system that fixes it. You know how you play Overwatch, you're feeling really good, so you all say stay as the same team, and now you're a group of 6? The game knows better. It only puts you against other groups of 6, and now you're gonna lose because it's all diamonds.
Right, and if Left 4 Dead eventually, you know, the opposing team might coalesce into a team of randos that can beat the original team of randos, but unlikely. But take 2 winning teams of 6 each, you put them against each other, now you got something going on.
So let's talk about things you can do to prevent people from quitting games. Like, how do we deal with the situation where people quit? Mitigate it. Can you, if it's like an app version of a board game, have an AI that'll just automatically take over if someone quits. In Overwatch, say there aren't enough players, have some bot with a fake name that just joins the game. Just mitigate the harm that the quitter caused so the game can continue.
It's not going to be perfect, but you can think of something, right? It might, you might say, oh, well, technically it messes up the game in this way. Sure, but, the alternative was to end the game.
Yeah.
So,
like if a player quits Carcassonne, the only material impact is that, 1, you no longer have to worry about that player. So you might have put a meeple in a place strategically to block that player out, and now that's just wasted. And there will be more total tile draws per player. So if you were playing a strategy that assumed certain odds of tiles being drawn, and now more tiles will be drawn for the rest of the game, you probably are more likely to lose because of that strategy, but it's not that big a deal. That loss is still mitigated because you can still keep the game going.
Sort of like amputating a limb, right? It's like, well, you could live the rest of your life with no arm or not live.
Because remember, mitigation doesn't mean you're fully fixing it. You're mitigating it. You're reducing the harm. Mm-hmm. Overwatch does a good job of this. Escalate the punishment. If someone just quits a game, especially a video game,
we should redo this panel with an Overwatch counter in the corner.
That'd be pretty funny. I'll add that in. We'll probably do this.
It's like 10th Overwatch reference, 11th,
Why don't we do
12th?
This panel again? I'll figure out when we're doing it again. I'll do it again.
Good luck.
I'll do ZenkaiCon.
Sure.
I think I put it in for ZenkaiCon.
I'm not going to ZenkaiCon.
But anyway, sometimes people gotta quit games, like your baby vomits on you. That literally happened. We were playing Overwatch and one of our friends just says, gotta go, baby vomited on me, and the player quit. You can't fault someone for that. But if someone quits a lot, the odds either their baby's got a serious problem or they're rage quitting. So the more someone quits, the more you punish them. You escalate the punishment so that the more someone is harming other players, the more they themselves are harmed by the game. Proportional punishment. If you quit a casual game, who cares? But Overwatch, if you quit a competitive game, you're kinda effed. You are banned from competitive play for a certain amount of time. If you quit too many times, you're banned from the season. And they've talked about now, if you quit too many times, you might be banned for life. And you know what? I'm totally okay with that.
If your internet connection sucks and like that you have some legitimate excuse, stop trying to play the game. You're just ruining it for everyone else by trying to play.
We got a slide for that.
Yeah.
The graceful exit, the de facto graceful exit. Some games will have rules for this, but most games do not. It's very rare. But if a game, just by the nature of its rules, means that if a player quits, no other players are affected by this, like the game can continue exactly as though they didn't appear, or they weren't there in the first place, then there's a de facto way for someone to quit. Quitting literally doesn't matter. Factory Fun is a game where it doesn't matter how many players there are. The game scales itself automatically, and everyone's playing this puzzle game kind of solo.
Right. Anything that's a race, right? So think about like a 100-meter dash. It's like, well, if someone quits the 100-meter dash, all right, whatever, right? It doesn't affect, there's a lot of games that are actually races and somewhat disguised, or maybe even not disguised, right? It's like Yahtzee is a race. What other people do in Yahtzee doesn't matter to you. It's like you just get the best score you can on your dice, and then you see who has the highest score at the end. It's a race.
Now, much more rare is the de jure exit, the real exit. The game has rules that say, if a player wants to quit, X, Y, and Z happen.
Oh, this is the best.
It's so rare that I'm hard-pressed to come up with more than like 2 or 3 examples of it ever.
Now, of course, poker is the #1 example, because in most games of poker, you just quit. It's like the #1, the game with the most quitting ever, right? But there are other games that have rules for quitting, right, specifically.
If a game has specific rules for what to do if a player quits, that game is probably extremely well designed, because this is so rare that I am shocked by it when I encounter it.
Right.
Some games, if you're losing, they just kick you out. Before they can quit. If someone's about to flip the table disappears.
And I talked about tennis earlier being the perfect game, right? Where it's like, as long as you're still playing, you still have a chance to win. And as soon as you win, it's over. You don't play anymore, right? Well, Age of Steam is a train game, and there could be a lot of other train games, maybe like Railroad Tycoon or something, where you fall so far behind that no matter what decisions you make, you're not going to get enough points to win by the end of the game. But there's still like 5 turns left. So what do you do for those 5 turns?
But those games have fun stuff to do. Like you're moving all these cubes around. You might not realize you're losing.
But in Age of Steam, you start the game by taking out loans, and if you can't pay them back and you go bankrupt, it just says, all right, stop playing, you're done. And you leave the game, and the other people keep playing, and you go bye-bye.
The first time we played this game, Scott was eliminated in, I think, the 2nd turn, and then I got kicked out in the 3rd turn.
It was really early. I didn't do a lot.
And then we just went home.
Yeah.
But this is a way to prevent rage quitting, because now no one quit. We're just following the rules of the game. There's no asterisk.
Right. People rage quit because they're still stuck in this game that they've lost, but they still have to keep playing. If you just kick them out, so it's like, oh, you've lost, bye. They can't quit. They're out. Right.
Some games, like tennis, they end when they're over. Pong ends I can't say the nanosecond because it depends on what processor you're running, and the original Pong did not have that much processing power.
I just played some Pong just like 20 minutes ago.
But the frame that the game ends, the game is over, and you score, and it's done. The score is it's done. You've lost the second that you have lost. The game doesn't just keep going for 20 more minutes after you lost. This is a good way, especially in 2-player games, in symmetric games, in highly competitive games. Some games just give you those sweet loot boxes to get you to keep playing. Single-player games do this too. You played Super Meat Boy, right? That game's hard as balls. What does it do? Every time you die, it records that little Super Meat Boy track. The more you've lost, the more those recordings build up. The longer you've been losing, the more incentive you have to keep playing. The angrier you are, the more you want to finish. It's a feedback loop.
Right, so for as angry as you are for all this losing that's happening, right, they keep sweetening the pot. So it's like, well, listen, I know you lost and it sucks, but look, if you win next time, I'll give you $1. I lose again. Well, if you win next time, I'll give you $2. You keep giving a bigger reward for the final if they actually win. So it's like, man, this sucks. I've lost 1,000 times. Yeah, but if you win now, you'll get $1,000. All right, I'll try again. And you try again forever.
Now, there's a lot of problems with incentives, and I'm not going to get into the whole our loot box is evil thing. They are, but I'm not going to get into that. There's a much more fundamental problem with this kind of incentive. You're basically telling that dude who's gonna rage quit and freak out, hey, if you stay in the game, I'll give you $1. Just saying, this is a problem. Street Fighter went a different route. They're not gonna kick you out. They're just gonna shame you. Yo, this guy is a quitter. Right there, the Scarlet Q. So what's really interesting is that this article, everywhere it was posted, the same comment was at the top, no matter where it was, on Reddit, some random news site, and the comment was basically, but what if my internet connection sucks and I just can't play the game?
Right.
And pretty much, I'm of the opinion that one, most of those people are lying. And two, even if they are, it doesn't matter. Remember how it doesn't matter if someone's cheating or just good? It's the same for everyone else. It doesn't matter if Scott rage quits or his internet sucks. It's the same effect on me.
Right, I mentioned this already, right? If you literally have really crappy internet and you keep playing a game, what are you doing? You're joining games and then leaving them and ruining those games. It doesn't matter if you're doing this intentionally because you're a quitter or because your internet sucks. You playing the game is hurting and ruining other people's experiences. Get out. Right? It sucks for you that you have bad internet. I feel sorry for you, but you still shouldn't don't keep trying to play. Go fix your internet and then come back.
Play some single player games, play with some bots.
Right, if we're playing DDR and you got BO, it's like, go take a shower and come back. Right? It doesn't matter.
Dynamite.
It doesn't matter if your BO is because you have some sort of problem, right? You use deodorant, but you're just really, really sweaty and stinky, and you can't help it.
To the BO angle at a gaming con?
It's like, I understand. I feel sorry for you. I'm not saying you're a bad person, but whether it's because of a legitimate reason or not, you're creating a bad experience for other people. Be courteous and have sympathy for other people. Right?
Structure. Even if someone's losing a hockey game, they're not gonna quit because they'll get punished by the league, or there's a system in place to where the meta around the game that someone might want to quit keeps them playing the game for professional reasons or structural reasons or social reasons.
Right, so you could maybe your system of ranking during the regular season, right? Maybe even if you lose, maybe there's like a tiebreaker for goal differential. So it's like, well, listen, even though you've lost this game, if you score a bunch of goals, it could still maybe help you if the tiebreaker ends up mattering. So you keep playing and keep trying to score even though you've lost.
Or you personally want to excel to show off to try to get traded to a better team or something like that. There's a lot of
people in contract years, they play well and then they get a new contract and they go, yeah. I'm gonna not score any goals for this team.
Matchmaking. This is almost a loss edit, but it's not quite there. But matchmaking is an interesting way to prevent rage quitting, because remember how a lot of the reason people quit is because they feel like the game's unfair? Ideally, ostensibly, if you do matchmaking well, people will only play against people who are of a similar skill level.
Right, and this eliminates a lot of the reasons someone would get mad, because they're not going to play against anyone who makes them mad.
Yeah, you take all those angriest people in the world, you put them and play against each other. Now the problem is...
Right, it's like those two people playing Magic, the one guy who's real angry, why is he even playing against that guy who's actually really good?
It's going to be
they would never play each other. They would never play each other in the first place, and then the angry situation wouldn't happen.
But as we know, this is not a panacea, because the angriest people in the world already are only playing the other angriest people in the world. They're like trapped in this 2/5 hell forever. There's another double-edged sword in matchmaking, and this is something that I don't know what to do about. Perfect matchmaking means that on any given game, both sides have a 50% chance of victory. That means that no matter how good you get at a game, if the game is matchmaking well, you'll always win the same percentage of games. You won't feel like you're getting better. You won't realize you're getting better unless you occasionally play against muggles and realize that you're a golden god now.
If you want me to talk about this, come to the balance panel whenever that is.
It is. The balance panel, we have a slide at the end to remind us when we have to do that
whatever
panel.
The balance panel is, we'll talk about that if you care.
But these are algorithmic ways to determine player skill to then match people up with players of similar skill. But like I said, it's a double-edged sword, and there's no good answer. The ego shield we talked about. This is that excuse. Build ego shields into your games. Give everyone who would rage quit some stupid excuse for why they lost.
So they don't feel bad, so they won't quit.
Or if you're not going to include them, you just have to understand that that game is basically going to be aimed at the kind of people who do not need an ego shield, who are totally okay accepting and embracing their own terrible failings.
So your players will all be the hyper-competitive, serious type, and you will not have a mass-market, well-funded game with tons of players giving you piles of cash.
Yeah, you're gonna have the Beardos
a small and dedicated community of power players.
You're gonna have us playing your game and complaining about it a lot. We'll keep playing it, and we'll be complaining about it the whole time. Don't let people cheat at your stupid game. For video games and board games. In the old days, like many of you might be too young, but like in the early days of FPSs, everyone was using an aimbot.
There's no way to stop you.
Yeah, like the code, you could literally just like write your own client to Doom that would just hit headshots automatically forever.
It's like now VAC seems like just like a fact of life, but like I was around when VAC was invented.
I used to know the IP addresses of a couple of Quake servers that were heavily curated with a team that would watch for cheaters and ban them from those servers. Typing in an IP address to play a game, those were the days. But this happens in tabletop too. If you design a tabletop game where the components make it easy for someone to cheat, it's more likely someone might cheat. Even tabletop games have to be designed well to prevent easy, low-hanging fruit cheating because some people will just cheat if given the opportunity.
If you think about a Wild West poker game, right, in the back of a saloon, it's likely guns are going to come out at that kind of situation, right? But you think about a poker game in a well-regulated casino, guns probably not coming out.
When they come out, a lot of other guns come out in a hurry.
Maybe, right?
Much more important than that is anti-harassment tools, because no one should have to quit a game because they're the ones being harassed. Games need to do a better job of identifying the toxic shitheads and just preventing them from playing.
We got 5 minutes.
And the worst part is, it can't just be reporting mechanisms, because actually a lot of anti-harassment tools are used by harassers to harass.
Oh, let's harass Rim. Everyone report him for cheating at Overwatch, and then what's he going to do his next panel on?
Yeah. I don't know what I'd do. I think I'd just start playing Civ 6. I can start playing Civ 6.
We'll report him for that, too. Every game that Rim goes to, let's report him.
Anti-harassment design is difficult to achieve.
Are you being played by Blizzard or what?
Have you all seen, full disclosure, I do own a bunch of Blizzard stock, but that is independent of this. I actually
let's call the SEC and get Rim banned from stock trading, his favorite game.
But anti-harassment design is difficult, as you can see from Nintendo. Look at the things they've done to prevent you from drawing dicks and sending them to people. You basically can't find people to play games with, but you can't really harass anyone you're playing Blizzard games, like at least this Blizzard game, I guess.
Yeah, you can't talk to anyone. If they try to friend you, you just don't accept their friend request. They can't chat with you. You can say hello and like thank you and whatever.
I guess you can let that rope run out every single turn.
If the person keeps talking, you can just squelch them and then you don't hear them. And then what can they do? All they can do in this game to harass you is wait every turn, in which case they're just sort of letting you in. Just, you know, whenever anyone tries to rope me, I just wait it out. I'm like, go right ahead, rope man. Rope away.
But think about the trade-off. The more anti-harassment design you build into a core game's mechanics, the less direct socialization you can allow, because most harassment takes the form of direct social interaction. Voice chat? What are you going to do about that? It's hard. You can't design around voice chat.
Oh, one day we will.
Well,
we'll
maybe.
have some voice recognition AIs in there.
That is actually a problematic situation as well, because algorithms, machine learning, seems like a nice panacea for everything. Usually when someone says that's just a panacea, it's because it's not actually the right solution. Algorithms build into themselves the implicit design flaws of the systems they're emulating.
Mm-hmm. You got to make really good algorithms and, you know, work them out. You can't just go, you know, if you just go with whatever, you're going to have big problems.
If gaming has an intrinsic, entrenched harassment problem, anti-harassment machine learning algorithms will build on top of that corrupt foundation. Just make losing fun. I'm not even going to tell you how. That is a talk that I gave without Scott at PAX Australia a few years ago.
That was the only time you did it without me. I was there every other time.
I rewrote the whole panel too. It's a different panel.
Yeah, you pretend it is. It's like one slide is different, and then he's like, oh, I wrote a new panel.
If you go to that QR code, there's video of this talk, and there's also video on YouTube of the time Scott and I did it together. You'll see the differences. But this talk is about how to make losing fun, because if someone's having fun, they'll keep playing the game even if they are losing. Mm-hmm. Culture. This is another double-edged sword.
Time's running out.
We got 2 minutes.
Okay.
On one hand, if you have a culture of good sportsmanship and fair competition and camaraderie, then people will either not quit because they want to keep the game going and they owe this social debt,
right,
this social contract to everyone else on the team.
Yeah.
But it could also be bad.
Right, there's the toxic masculine American culture is like, quitting is bad, do not quit,
Suck it up.
You are a baby if you quit.
Oh, you got hit on the head, keep going.
Right, that's no good.
Yep.
We don't like that.
So culture, you can build a culture around your game to then try to inform the decisions around players quitting and how things work. But We actually did a talk a long time ago about how the culture around your game is probably created by the mechanics of your game and not by any other factor. So what the hell did we do in this last hour?
Oh, we got free MAGFest badges.
We did get free MAGFest badges. If you can trick them into letting you on the stage, you too can have a free MAGFest badge.
They don't give you the hotel or the transportation, though.
Nope.
So
Quitting is an intrinsic part of games. They are not real life. If you can't quit it, it is real life, and you're probably trapped somewhere, and you need to call someone for help. Don't quit games. Like, if you don't have to, don't quit a game, because it is kind of a dick move. But
if it's a multiplayer game, you're ruining it for people when you quit, so try not to.
But honestly, you probably should quit games sometimes. If you're not having fun, if a game's boring, walk away. If that game of House on the Haunted Hill or whatever, Betrayal at the House, if that game hits its 6th hour and you walk away, no jury would convict you.
You know, if you're sitting at a table here and someone's being a jerk, you know, get up. And if you got the balls too, you should tell them why you're getting up. You're a jerk, that's why I'm quitting this game. Bye-bye, I don't gotta play with you no more.
If you don't like a game, if the game is not for you, we played this really weird train game called 1846. It's one hell of a train game. If it's not for you, it's okay to not play that game.
Yeah, if you start playing a game, you know, the other people might be a little bit upset if you quit at it, but listen, you know, it's your life. You've only got this much time and even less that much time to play games, so don't spend it doing stuff you don't want to do.
If the game is hurting your actual real life, you should probably stop playing it. If you forgot to eat or like feed your kid, then maybe you should stop playing the game and go deal with those things. If someone is harassing you, that is a perfectly legitimate reason to quit a game. But this is the situation where if you are safe and able to do so, you should tell them and everyone why. Especially in tabletop. A lot of gamers, we did a whole panel on this, it's called Why No One Will Game With You. It's on YouTube. If you're at a table and someone says something pretty shitty, a lot of gamers will just smile and nod and look away because they're so desperate to play a game with someone. You found the one person who will play Bushido Blade with you, and then it turns out they're a milkshake duck. A lot of people will turn a blind eye. I say don't. You need to tell them, no, you're a racist piece of shit, and walk away.
Someone taught me a real good trick. I forget who it was, even though I want to give them credit real bad. The best, if someone says something that they shouldn't be saying, and you want to let them know that that's not acceptable, you should say to them, we don't say that here. Right? It's like, that's not acceptable here, right? You're saying in this environment of MAGFest, that's not okay, right?
If you're gonna quit a game, quit with grace. Just quit the game. Don't flip the table. Don't start griefing.
Because then you're the bad guy.
If you're having a bad time, just quit and walk away and don't think about it. Just experience tranquility. Nothing on earth feels better than just quitting that Overwatch game with all those wood tears who somehow got into your group and just going away, taking a nap, not worrying about it. And if you're going to design a game, make it so that the losing part of the game is as fun as the winning part. We are definitely out of time.
Good.
I hope that was enjoyable.
All right.